Let's look now at transport, and could a project to electrify our main rail link to London end up costing twice as much as expected and running slower trains? That's the claim from one MP after Network Rail admitted the bill for electrifying the Midland Mainline through the region has soared to £1.3 billion. Rob Pittham has been taking a look at the figures.
It's an ambitious programme of improvements intended to transform our journey to the capital. Track repairs, station upgrades and better signalling are all on the agenda, but the centrepiece is the electrification of the Midland Mainline. At the moment, the route is only electrified between London and Bedford. That'll be extended up the line to Sheffield, with electrification due to reach Corby in 2017 and Leicester, Derby and Nottingham by 2019. Network Rail says it'll be able to carry almost 10,000 more passengers a day and cut journey times by around 5 minutes. But the costs are soaring. Last year, Network Rail said electrification would cost £500 million. Now it's just said a review of the programme has decided it'll be £1.3 billion. Network Rail says its first estimates were just that, estimates. It says it's now had a chance to go through the entire route and find out what needs to be done. It points out that upgrading what's essentially a Victorian railway line is extremely expensive and complicated, and work needs to be done on almost every section of the route. Despite the jump in costs, though, industry experts say the project still represents value for money.
We need to keep up with the rest of the country. For many years, the Midland Mainline has been the Cinderella line by comparison with the West Coast and the East Coast lines. There's now a lot of money being put into the Great Western Line out towards Bristol and Cardiff, so it's only fair that the East Midlands gets its fair slice of the cake.
But Labour has other worries. The East Coast Mainline on the other side of the region is already electrified and is due to get new rolling stock. They're worried the old trains from there could be handed across to the Midland Mainline, saving costs but not journey time.
If we got those on Midland Mainline, they'd actually be slower because they don't have the acceleration the current meridians have. Passengers want to be able to get down to London or up to Sheffield faster, so that's a real concern.
Network Rail says it's too early to say what rolling stock it'll use, but it's confident the electrification will be done on time and that it will get the funding. With upgrade costs rising across the country, though, there are fears that projects elsewhere could be delayed.
Investing in our railways is absolutely essential. It's really important for people travelling from place to place. It's what drives jobs, growth and our regional economy. So we need to do it, but obviously there are going to be big questions because there are projects across the country and many of them are now over budget and there's a potential for delays.
And there's another twist to this tale. Back in September, Network Rail was reclassified. It's now formally a government-owned body. Its borrowing has always been backed in the past by the UK government, but now it has to appear on official accounts, which means that this increase in costs is adding another £650 million to the UK's debt pile.
Well, that's one astonishing figure, the cost of electrifying the line more than doubling in a year. How concerned are you by that, Heather?
Absolutely not at all. As made completely clear in your piece, that was an original estimate. 1.3 is the line all the way up. They've already started. You go out on the trains going back up and down to London as we do every week. You actually see the work happening right now. This is a project that is on time and will be finished on time.
Well, Network Rail do say that they're confident of raising the funding, but where's the money going to come from?
It's a £38 billion project across the whole of the country. And, let's get real about this. In 13 years, we had less than 13 miles electrified. We are doing it right now. Okay. We promised we would do it. We're doing it. The money is there to do it.
Well, let's get real also on the fact that this amount is now going to go on the country's debt.
Yes.
And we can't afford that.
The important thing is that we are honest with the public about what is national debt. People will say £650 million extra for electrification of the likes of the Midland Mainline is incredibly important. We want efficient trains, fast trains, trains that run daily and you can rely on them. And that's going to be the difference.
Lenny, would Labour be happy to pick up the tab on this if you win?
Well, look, I think this is a project that's committed to and that this needs to happen. I think we're incredibly disappointed to see this cost going up, and I hope it's not going up again. And we're not talking about a small amount of money here, millions and millions of pounds going into this. And this is, Heather mentions people going up and down to London every week, but actually I think we've got a bigger problem in that across my area there are people who are not travelling up and down to London every week, they're travelling around our communities, and that's what's getting harder. I've been running a campaign to try and get the Robin Hood line, which runs from Nottingham to Mansfield and to Worksop, extended out to Edwinstowe and Ollerton, and that's about connectivity between our areas. We're also
So you're saying that we shouldn't be doing this with the Midland Mainline?
I'm saying that this is one part of the project, but as Lillian said, there isn't even a guarantee that this is going to cut journey times. What I think is really important is that we are also looking, if we're committing these large amounts of money, I think we should be also looking to try and find the smaller amounts of money that are going to help our communities and that are going to help people working in places like Ollerton, in places like Edwinstowe, and get that moving as well.
I completely appreciate what our friend says. The difficulty is, actually, the truth is we've already done that. With the new station at Ilkeston that Jessica Lee has managed to persuade the government to do, these things are doable. Everybody appreciates that using the rail network now is so fantastically popular compared to how it used to be in the old days. We realise it's money well spent. I think this is totally doable.
But £1.3 billion is probably a drop in the ocean compared to what we owe, basically, isn't it, in the grand scheme of things? But this still is not going to help the figures.
Well, the important thing is it's a £38 billion project. So 1.3 billion can be souped up into that. I don't think there's a problem with that at all. Network Rail don't think there's a problem, and the Secretary of State doesn't think there's a problem.
Do you think that this problem, Leonie's, not been helped by the fact that Labour didn't invest enough in the railways as well?
You know, we did invest in the railways, and we saw railways like the East Coast Mainline, which we brought back into profitability, and which is now returning money to the Treasury, which has now just been sold off again. And actually that's money which is now not coming into the Treasury.
Okay.